What's up, Dragon Brood? We're here with another deck that are going to give you some upgrades to update a deck that already exists going into Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. Again, I know some of you want to see brand new decks, but honestly, we're trying something different and giving people that already have cards and already have decks from the previous season some upgrades to save you some both time, money, and wild cards, importantly, going into this first couple of days of the new set, so you can still have something to play without having to go too deep into your pocket. So hopefully this helps. Please let me know down in the comments below how you feel about these type of things, because first time I'm trying something like this. Normally I just roll out a bunch of new deck lists, but this time we're just going to go with this route. So for this one, we're going to be looking at Boros dogs. The reason I bring this up is that the dog deck has actually been reasonably playable. So we're coming back and making some changes. We know this is still a deck that people still enjoy. You're going to be able to play it for another 3 months until rotation, because you lose some very key dogs that are part of the list. But outside of that, I think the deck's actually going to be pretty good for you. And we did get one significant new card that actually really plays a role in this deck. And we changed the mana from the last time we played it. So overall, you're going to be looking at a kind of a different build. So let me know what you think. Let's go take a look at the deck. Okay, so taking a look at the dogs, this is a pretty fast list. Your goal is to try to finish the game sometime around turn 5, 6, 7. You don't really want it going much longer than that. We do have a couple elements that can give us a little bit of game if that were to happen, but you really don't want to. You're hoping to avoid that if at all possible. So starting at the top, we have Akum's Hellhound. This is just every time you play a landfall, it gets +2/+2. Starts out as an 0/1, so hopefully you're getting attacked with the 2/3 quite a bit. But it is a dog, so, you know, it got to make the cut because we need some other 1-mana dogs that were worth playing. Selfless Savior, just a fantastic all-around card, gets to save a creature. Just, man, this card's super good, and I also really hate it. So it's a good love-hate card. Pretty much every white aggro deck of any kind is probably playing this card. It's just super solid all around, and happens to be a dog, because it's going to get some of the other bonuses that other cards in the deck are providing. We have 3 Alpine Houndmaster. So this is a 2/2 for 2 when it comes into play. You could search for 1 Igneous Cur and 1 Alpine Watchdog. And whenever it attacks, it gets +1/+0 for each other attacking creature. So obviously, since we're wanting to attack with a lot, it's kind of fantastic that this gets a bonus. Now, it is not a dog, so that's one thing we have to be aware of, but it does help us go get more dogs to keep replenishing our hand in the event of a sweeper or something else, which is super nice. And then when it gets to attack, it's just a big attacker. Usually going to be a 4 or 5 power, so that's actually pretty good too. And it's often going to be the one that's targeted, because when it doesn't have indestructible or anything, it becomes a real problem. So yeah, like it, don't love it, but it fulfills a purpose. Same thing with the Alpine Watchdog and the Igneous Cur. I don't really love these 2 cards, but the fact that we can go search for them for free, we're going to go ahead and play 2 of each, because if we're searching for more than that, probably things didn't go our way anyway. So we're totally okay just playing a couple copies of each one of them. You don't want to draw a lot of those, because it's not really the creatures. Those aren't the creatures you plan to cast, really. In the 2-mana slot, you would rather be casting things like the new card, Loyal Warhound. This is a 3/1 with Vigilance for 2. Now, admittedly, it does have a 1 toughness, and that's a little bit disappointment, but we do have some things to pump the toughness and make it a little bit better. It does have Vigilance, which is really nice, so that's awesome, but its actual ability is if your opponent has more lands than you, whenever you play it, you can go search for a land and put it into play. The interesting thing is, if you're on the draw, you do get the benefit of, say, on turn 3, if you were to go ahead, or your opponent's turn 3, you going into your turn 3, you get to play the Warhound, and then go search up a land, put it into play, and you still get your normal land drop. So then you're going to be looking at having 4 land and basically breaking serve and now being ahead on mana, which is pretty sweet. So that's a cool thing you get access to. Also, something is when you have Pack Leader, which we absolutely were going to play because it pumps your other dogs, and when Pack Leader attacks, you prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to dogs you control. So this means that you get to attack with a 4/2 attacker because it has Vigilance, and then you still have it as a 3/1 blocker if necessary. So really big on that. I think it's going to be really solid with those 2 cards being on the battlefield. Additionally, we've decided to play a couple of copies of Rally the Ranks, because again, you can choose dogs, make your team bigger, so all these cards become a bit better. It also makes Akum Hellhound a little bit less of a liability, that if you don't draw lands, you still have a 1/2 or a 2/3 creature that you can still fight with. So you want it to still be relevant, not just be sitting there on the battlefield. Next card we got is, Boldhound. Boldhound is fantastic. Having haste creatures, especially post sweeper, is really nice. But this is the way to just ramp up the damage on your opponent. I mean, if you turn 1 creature, turn 2 creature, or even 2 things on turn 2, and then follow up with the Boldhound on 3, like that is super big to be able to get that type of damages early. Especially if you do turn 1 creature, turn 2 pack leader, turn 3 Hellhound or Bolthound. That's a lot of extra damage you're getting across the board. So very big card in this list. And then the 2 cards that are going to look a little bit out of place, we are playing 2 Elite Spellbinder, just because we need some way to disrupt the opponents. We need to be able to interact with them and do a little bit of something to try to buy some time in some cases. However, we're also playing 2 copies of Guardian of Faith. This is a card that actually lets you avoid sweepers, lets you avoid the extinction events, things of that nature, and is really solid. It does have flash. It adds another creature that attacks to the battlefield for 3 power. We're not going to go crazy with it because there are some matchups that's not going to be great, but I actually don't mind having it with enough things like Sultai Ultimatum floating around where they're playing both Extinction Event and Shadow's Verdict. This allows you to dodge those cards for a turn and then kind of keep things up going the other direction. So big fan of that, and honestly it's just hard to downplay this card. However, I don't think it's a card every aggro deck needs to be playing a lot of, but I'm willing to just go ahead and experiment with 2 and 2 of the Spellbinder right now just to see how things go. And then of course we're also still playing Embercleave because we have access to red mana and Embercleave's just kind of awesome, so we're going to roll with that. Then we have a bunch of Fable Passages, a full set. We have a full set of Faceless Havens because Faceless Havens also happen to count as dogs because they have all creature types. Then we have 4 Needle Verge Pathway, and then we're kind of capping things off with some mountains and some plains. So nothing real fancy. It's a real clean, real simple list, but it's built in a way that just helps us get things done, is the biggest thing. It's not trying to do anything fancy. It's really just trying to go for the throat, push things as fast as possible. And then you're giving yourself a little bit of longevity in the game between Elite Spellbinder, Guardians of Faith, and finding a way to play the Faceless Havens here with all these snowlands. So that's going to keep you from just getting demolished from your dogs getting dealt with and give you something to do for that long play. So you can get a lot of damage in early, but this will still let you kind of play the long game and finish if you need to, which is something I think the previous versions didn't necessarily have. But the new cards actually give us a little bit of extra play, help our mana situation out a little bit, and really kind of take it in a slightly different direction, even though it still is able to play still very aggressive, which I think is a big selling point for this type of deck. Because sometimes you want to be able to go fast, especially in the beginning of a set. If you can come out quick and really just beat the opponent down, put a lot of pressure, that's going to allow you to beat a lot of the decks that are doing a lot of experimenting with new cards. Especially when you're talking about an environment in Adventure in the Forgotten Realms, there's going to be a lot of dragons and whatnot. People are going to have to be ramping up to big mana. People are going to be doing tricks trying to get a lot of treasure. People are going to be doing stuff to try to get, complete dungeons. So if you can ramp through and really put pressure on the opponent quick, you're going to get some free wins here in the early release as an AFR. While your opponents are kind of navigating, trying to figure things out, you're going to be able to just take things straight to the finish line. So yeah, hopefully you like this one. Give it a look. As always, let me know in the comments what you think about it, or some other decks that maybe you're looking at upgrading. And please do not forget to hit the like button, subscribe button, notification bell. And that's all I have for you for now. We will see you next time.